Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast.
It's going to be an intense, kind of scary ride.
The podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Plaw, at Andrew Plaw Tech, and I'm joined with two fine individuals. Who am I joined with tonight?
Rafael Garcia.
Kevin O'Connor.
All right. Rafael, I'll start with you, man. So I got to meet you, I think, well, I was going to say the first day of the conference, but with the PowerShell Saturday, it's kind of a first day. There is a Sunday track as well, but I met you, I think I was sitting next to you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you said you're a listener of the podcast. Oh, wait, we met at dinner, actually, the night before that.
It was
That's right.
Friday night.
Friday night, we had some nachos, and I think I had tacos. You had a shrimp cocktail.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So you came here from where?
Portland, Maine.
That's cool. I have some coworkers who work there. So how'd you hear about the conference? You mentioned you heard about, I know I've mentioned it recently on the podcast, but you heard about it, I think, on LinkedIn, and then we mentioned it a few times on the podcast, and you made the trip.
Yeah. I heard about it from one of my wife's coworkers. He posted on LinkedIn, and and then also heard you later mention it in your podcast.
Yeah, I had an interview with Phil Bossman, I think, where we highlighted it quite a bit, and I plugged it a few times. So it's exciting to meet podcast listeners in the flesh, because I know there's people out there listening. Do I know who they are? No. Do I know who they are now? A little bit more. So it's great to see you here, man. Kevin?
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. This
You're
is
an
great.
experienced podcaster, though.
I don't know about that.
I mean, 100 episodes is pretty good.
The now defunct podcast.
Now
I won't
defunct.
mention.
Listen, we already mentioned it.
That's
true. But it's great to have you here, man. Where are you coming from?
Marietta, Georgia.
And how'd you hear about the conference?
Through the podcast.
You know, I knew the answer to that, everybody out there listening. But it's always cool to see. And I got to say that, you know, my perspective, it's so great to meet people who are listening. And I hear about the different ways you're listening. And I think on a lot of the podcasts, I'm like, walk safe, drive safe. You know, if you're listening in the car, make sure you get it to work safe, whatever, all that kind of thing. I think you said, Rafael, you've listened to every episode, so you know me better than I know myself at this point.
Yeah, I can almost quote you now.
Yeah, a lot of the themes I say are pretty consistent, and I think you've seen that. I think I've repeated definitely a lot of the stuff I've said on the podcast in person through our chats, but it's been awesome to meet you all. How's the conference been day one?
It was great. Yeah, there was so much content. I'm waiting for all the content to be emailed to us, because there's just so much that I have to go back and look at.
Yeah, check the GitHub repos, kind of go through it again. A lot of times for me, whenever I'm in a conference, it'll be content that's new to me and like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And then to actually implement it, you got to research it, install it for yourself, kind of run through it. But Kevin, how's day one been for you, man?
Yeah, it's the same. It's been absolutely awesome. It's actually exceeded all expectations I had for everything.
Are you serious? That's
100%.
Awesome. Shout out to Mike Kanekos, Kevin Locks, and Phil Bossman for putting on a fantastic event. The RTP SUG is a premier user group in the PowerShell community, so I've been really impressed with what they've done. And I think right now we're at the Saturday night social at a movie theater / bar / there's a ton of kids running around playing soccer and on scooters and things, so that's cool. Rafael, what was your favorite talk of the day? You can only pick one. I know there's a lot of great content.
Okay, so I guess if I were to pick one, it would probably be the PowerShell, the talk about the cross-platform.
Yeah, Frank Lesniak
Yep.
and Danny Stutz, did a talk on cross-platform PowerShell. And I actually interviewed them for the podcast. So, you know, if you want to catch up again and hear a little bit more behind-the-scenes information, you can check out those podcasts. But what about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. And also not surprisingly, but the one I think I liked the most or got the most out of was the redfish talk, something I'll probably never use at all personally.
Yeah.
But, the talk was so great and so much information. I really enjoyed it.
I think Blake did a fantastic job as a first-time speaker, too. I was surprised. I know that guy put in some work to get it as presentable as it was.
It was great.
And I think the protocol is really cool. I talked to him on the podcast as well. If you want to go back and revisit, learn a little bit more about Blake, a little bit more about his history in IT and how he got to where he is. But yeah, I thought it was really cool that there is a solution that like multiple vendors pretty much all the vendors are on the same page of like, hey, we're going to support this. And that was sort of an organizational-led effort from an independent organization. I mean, that was pretty sick to see. I'm in the same boat as you, as I probably won't actually be utilizing it, but I will be pointing people to it regularly. Awesome. And you are both going to be around for Sunday, right?
Yep.
And what is Sunday? What track are you attending on Sunday?
Honestly, I have to go back and look at the schedule. But,
I think there's PowerShell Fundamentals and there's a chocolatey.
Yeah, I'm doing Sean's.
Yeah, Sean Wheeler and Stephen Judd are doing I think they're going to cover some cross-platform PowerShell stuff as well.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Sean is a legend. And so is the dad joke king. Have you guys heard any dad jokes this week?
yeah, I did.
Yeah. Where'd you hear those?
There are a bunch during the session today.
Which
That's for
session?
sure.
The Stephen Judd one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He crushed it. I heard he ran into some issues with the demo, but then he gets back to the hotel, same environment.
Demo was fun. I mean, demo was great. You know, it's still got the gist and still got a lot out of the whole presentation. It was an awesome presentation.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. That's just the live demo curse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely is. And you know what? Whenever you're running commands at home, you see these polished up presentations. Guess what? You're going to run into errors. You're going to have to kind of put your thinking cap on. Maybe phone a friend. We always encourage that. That's a big kind of takeaway I heard today was don't be afraid to reach out for help. Get involved in the community. Even if that just means asking a question and actually not just suffering in silence, like I like to say.
Yep.
Were you all around last night for the karaoke?
I was not.
I was there. Yeah.
How was that?
That was awesome. Yeah.
That was awesome. I didn't anticipate that. So we had dinner at this Mexican place. We walked down like 100 feet at this other bar. And yeah, surprisingly, it was Showtunes karaoke. And Phil Bossman and Stephen Judd put on a performance of a lifetime for us there. I did not know what we were getting into with that. But apparently, Phil Bossman is a big Showtunes guy. Did you know that? Little known fact.
Know that.
He and his wife attend the Broadway locally, I guess, all the time. So he knew every single song they were singing. And he sang the Make a Man Out of You by Mulan. Amazing. Memories, right? I think you've probably heard, if you listen to a bunch of the podcasts, that a big benefit of getting involved in the community is making friends and making those memories to where you can take your career from just being something that you kind of, it's a labor, but it can turn into a labor of love, and where you get to see some of the same friends year over year. 10 years from now, I'll probably still be friends with both of you and Phil Bossman, and, that type of relationship stuff I geek out over. Just like I geek out over the Redfish protocol. I geek out over the fact that, we're in the fortunate position. We get paid to learn. We get paid to sit down. Maybe you got an adjustable desk. That'd be sick. But you get to use your brain and learn new things and grow, both as a PowerSheller, but also as a person, and grow alongside others, which is, I guess that's the whole community thing, right? One takeaway from today. Kevin, what did you learn, man? One takeaway. You can share one thing with the audience.
The biggest takeaway I had today was actually something that was mentioned on your podcast previously by someone who I can't remember who said it, and I'm sorry for that, but they talked about how they took the time, especially with people who have kids, like myself and everyone else out there with kids. They take the time every morning to spend like an hour just doing PowerShell or coding or whatever project they're working on. And then I think Mike mentioned that same exact thing today, and it's true. Just kind of take a little bit of time, and just do it, because otherwise it's hard to stick. Actually,
Yeah.
and second thing, I have two takeaways. The other
Okay.
one is just the family vibe of this. I've been to a lot of other conferences. I don't think I've ever felt so close to people in the community as I have during a conference like this. This is fantastic today.
I completely agree. I think that a lot of people who have gotten to a place where maybe they've been interviewed on the podcast, or we look up to them, they've written a cool module, whatever. If you haven't had experience in another language and are very proficient, there is a certain amount of at some point you have to put in those extra hours. You have to really be committed to learning PowerShell, because it is challenging to really be able to write your own code and use the pipeline efficiently and all these things. It does take some commitment. I know that personally for my journey, there was a time period where it consumed a large part of my brain, because to wrap my head around it, I just had to. Maybe I wasn't as proficient as others or as quick of a learner as others, but if you go through that process and you're also connected with others in the community, it's such a rewarding thing. And I think what I like about community-oriented events like this is you get to see people at each stage of that journey. You get to see the people who are up on the stage. You get to see the Mike Kanekoses and the Phil Bossmans of the world who are really inspiring that community spirit. But it's good stuff, man. I'm glad to have met both of you. But Raphael, what are some of your key takeaways?
Well, I agree with everything you just said. I think that people should get involved in the community. It's really helpful. It's just put yourself out there. I consider myself a kind of quiet person, so it's a challenge. But yeah, you'll get a lot out of this. You have to invest in yourself. So I'm kind of just repeating a lot of the stuff that I've heard you mention, and I think it's very true. And the community is very welcoming. That's one thing that I really learned. No one makes you feel dumb. Everyone's at a different stage, and
And I think there's just this general vibe of just people who are the more experienced ones. Maybe they've solved some of the problems that you're having. They are so excited to share that information with you. All you have to do is let them know that you're receptive to it, and they are happy to give you an outpouring of support and kind of guide you in the right direction. So that's really cool to see. One thing I talk about on the podcast a lot is find your next step and take it. So I'll pose this question to you first, Raphael. What is your next step for your career growth, for where you want to go with your life and career and PowerShell? What's your next step that you're going to take?
I think getting more practice on writing scripts. I have the the book PowerShell Month of
PowerShell, a month of lunches?
Not that one. The next one, scripting.
Oh, scripting a month of lunches.
Yes.
Yes.
Just to get better at scripting.
Nice. What about you, Kevin? What's your next step?
I want to get more involved in the community because this has been today was so great.
Electric, right?
Yeah, it's a perfect way to say it. That, and also I want to master Graph API a little bit more because that's something I need to get a little bit better with. But the community, number one, for sure.
Have you dabbled with the Graph API a little bit?
Yeah, I have been recently. That's been my new kind of adventure. That's been helping. I mean, they've been putting out modules too. So I don't have to use the API, but I want to get better with actually calling out to API, the Graph API.
Yeah, whenever I talk to people who are really in the weeds with Graph, they'll use the module for it for a lot of things, but in practicality, it's great if you can just call the direct endpoint.
Oh, I heard about the extension that I use all the time now. I heard about on the podcast, the one where in the browser it shows you the what exactly is being called.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I forget the name.
Graph Explorer.
Yeah, Graph Explorer.
Yeah.
That's been awesome. So shout out to the guest that also said that. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I interviewed him, so hey, we're in the same boat. But yeah, the Graph is really powerful. The Graph API, you can do a whole ton with it, and it's cool to see that it's a new endeavor. It's going to be supported for probably the foreseeable future. You never know what the future looks like 10 years from now, but definitely a skill worth investing in if you're in the 365 and Azure ecosystem.
Yeah. I talked to Sean about that, the documentation for the Graph stuff.
He's our wizard.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a great guy. It was awesome. I got to meet his wife and hear about his travels in Texas, which, Raphael, you're from Texas, yeah?
Yeah, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas.
And you heard the spiel about how he's visiting every county and checking out the courthouse in every single county in Texas, which, in case you don't know, maybe our international listeners know how big Texas is, but it's bigger than a lot of countries out there.
Yeah.
It's quite the endeavor. And it was cool for me to see that his spouse got to witness how appreciated he is in the community because, he's been doing this IT thing for a while, and I just love that guy. He is so community focused. He has a big role at Microsoft and he's doing a lot of great things, but at the end of the day, he's at the user groups, just chilling, just learning with the rest of us, just connecting with the community. Love to see that.
He's very friendly, super easy to talk to.
Yeah,
he writes good docs. So shout out to Get Help and shout out Microsoft Docs. Check those out. Learn.microsoft.com/something or other. I think it's PowerShell. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot here, self. Awesome. Well, I want to push this to you, Raphael. So you mentioned learning PowerShell more. Kevin had the great answer of some community-oriented stuff. What is your next community-oriented step? Are you going to try and attend another conference? Are you going to attend some user groups? Where are you with things?
Well, just being more involved in the community. The Discord, that was a really good find for me.
aka.ms/PS Discord. If you want to join the PowerShell official Discord, check out the PowerShell Help channel.
Yeah. And I don't know, that's the main thing I can think of right now.
Well, it's really cool to hear how you found this opportunity, you heard about it, and you said, hey, there's there's this conference, and it's relatively affordable, and you decided to self-fund and send yourself and invest in yourself. And that is, a lot of the people I talk to on the podcast, that's how their journeys get started, man. That's how they kind of take themselves to crank it to 11, as they say.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I'm glad we connected on LinkedIn. I'm glad we got to meet this week. I look forward to hearing from you and hearing about some of the struggles, some of the successes that you have throughout your journey. Kevin, you mentioned wanting to get more involved in the community. What does it actually practically mean? What is the practical thing you're going to do?
Well, I'm definitely going to start going to the Wednesday online event.
First Wednesday of the month.
Yes.
RTP
Yep.
Sug.
Definitely going to do that. Want to be more active in the Discords and hopefully go to whenever the next one of these is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been throwing around the idea of a PowerShell Saturday Florida edition. No commitments yet, but
Well, I will 100% be there for that one.
sweet. I will too. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the podcast. It's great to come full circle with, I know you all have heard me before, but to be able to hear from you and to hear how you're using PowerShell, that's what really gets me fired up. So appreciate you all for joining me. Starting with you, Raphael. People liked what you've said. They want to connect with you. They want to follow along on the journey. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web? I know you're on LinkedIn. Are you on any other socials?
Not really. No, I need to become I guess that's another
Hey,
goal.
LinkedIn is pretty sweet. Shout out
Yep.
to the kids screaming in the background. We love the kids. But yeah, so you're active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great social network for PowerShell stuff and more professional stuff. I think these days, other social networks can, even LinkedIn to a certain extent can push content in front of you it gets your attention, but
Yep.
isn't the most productive to a work environment. But cool. Look forward to connecting with you. Kevin, people dig the vibe. They say, oh, this guy's getting involved in the community. I want to check it out. I want to support. Where can we find you on socials?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's the way to do it.
That's it.
And you know what? Links and show notes to both your socials and anything else we mentioned on the podcast, Microsoft Graph Explorer.
Oh, yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you both for joining me. And this has been another bar session. Till the next one. Welcome to another PowerShell podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Pla at Andrew Pla Tech. We're here with another bar session, and I'm joined with fellow Floridian. I don't know if you're originally from there, but you live in Orlando. Ryan Park, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Long-time listener and
First-time caller.
first-time caller. That's it.
right.
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Awesome to be able to meet you in person. I think we've exchanged a couple messages online.
Yes, yeah. So you had invited people to kind of reach out anytime. I saw you on the PDQ Discord after you had done one of the lunch demos that you do sometimes there, and decided to just kind of send a message there. Thought I might be able to make it over for a Gainesville PowerShell user group, and that ended up not working out. But then we had NC PowerShell Saturday, and managed to make it up here. And yeah, it's been fantastic getting to see a lot of the community
Awesome.
members I've heard on the show and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Discord.gg/PDQ. If you want to join that, check out the PowerShell scripting channel. But it's great to hear from you in person and get to meet you, get to close some circles. I've interviewed a few podcast guests today, and it feels very awesome to be able to meet people in person. After, I know I put out a podcast. I see there's listeners. Do I know who they are? No. But I know you now. And we're buddies. And you know what? You're going to be speaking at the Gainesville PowerShell user group at some point. I'm very excited to hear that. Maybe I'm pushing you into that, but...
That's what I need. You've given a lot of instruction on that we should try and branch out and move into out of our comfort zone, so to speak, to kind of move into that next phase in your career. And that's kind of what I need. Got to have that external pressure to force you to do it,
Yes, sir. A little closer with the mic. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's very reassuring to know that we're all on this journey together. I have next steps I want to take too. I want to speak at a few more conferences. I want to invest some time this next year to maybe dive into TUIs a little bit more, dive into security a little bit, give a couple talks on those at some different conferences. So we're all in it together, man. Because I know you're doing some cool stuff at work too. I know you're a big PowerSheller. Where are you in your journey? What type of stuff are you doing with PowerShell?
Yeah, so kind of the biggest thing is I'm running a decent-sized VMware environment for a healthcare organization. And so do a lot of stuff with Power CLI and automation there.
Yep.
Reporting through AD to get stuff up to management. Lots of piping that through import Excel, export out to Excel, give them some nice documents, make it look pretty, That's kind of the biggest thing. I really need to make that next step and start putting together like a module for internal use. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff I see that like our service desk could maybe start handling if I just front-ended a module to them. Sorry, man. If I just front-ended a module to them or something, and it takes some work off of
Yeah.
our second and third level staff, you know?
Nice. Yeah. And you kind of make yourself, you add a lot of value to the org and make yourself sort of not irreplaceable, but to a certain extent, that's kind of what we're going for. Get that job security going, maybe a little bonuses here and there. That's what we're all about. But writing a PowerShell module is a big endeavor. Have you written one at all, like a test one or anything like that?
I have not. No, it's something I need to pull one down from a Git repository and really look at that formatting and just kind of them together, and just even if they're completely unrelated, I feel like just going through that exercise would be pretty useful, and
Yep.
then can figure out exactly what I want to tackle for the first one and go from there.
And you can make a module with just one function. Keep it simple, PSDM1, PSM1, cross that off the bucket list. But I find, and if you've listened to every episode like you have, that, finding a good repository of somebody who's kind of reputable, has a bunch of good projects, and kind of copying how they go do things is pretty helpful. But what you may run into is that there's a lot of other kind of tools that they may use in that process that you need to sort of learn. But I'm here if you ever need any help. You want to hop on a call, I'm always happy. And anyone else out there in the community, I know I put it out there, and you mentioned you reached out after I said this, but anyone ever wants to reach out, hit me up. I'm at Andrew Platek on LinkedIn, everywhere on the internet. I think even Discord. So feel free to hit me up. I'm always happy to hear from people. And as you've heard today, people in the PowerShell community, they're ready to share their information that they've learned the hard way. And I'm very much in that boat. I'm very passionate about PowerShell. But today, you saw a lot of talks, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What was your favorite? You can only pick one. You got to choose a number one top dog. Who gets the shout out from Ryan?
Yeah, I think Jonathan Moss gets the shout out on CI/CD at Mozilla, and
Yes.
kind of how they do that Windows dev test platform. It was a deep conversation, lots of good information.
I love Jonathan Moss. I met them very early on in my career, and to see where they are now is just so awesome. And they're a great person too. So shout out to you, Jonathan Moss. I wish you were here tonight at the bar so I could interview you, but you know what? Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Because are you attending tomorrow for the PowerShell deep dives?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Second favorite session. I got to push you for it.
I think I'd do.
hard question.
It's kind of in the same vein. Some containerization, some WSL, Stephen Judd session at the end of the day.
Dude,
put a nice
second
bow
person
on
who
it.
said that. Yes.
Yeah, it really put a nice bow on things. Showed a lot of pulling other technologies into PowerShell and automating things with Docker, automating things with Azure and WSL even.
And I heard he ran into some issues with the demo, which that's what you can expect if you do a live demo. But it's cool. You're the second person I've heard who said that's one of their top sessions. So I'm going to be interviewing him shortly enough. Don't worry, Judd. I'll get to you. He loves being interviewed on the podcast. Did you see his speaker name tag?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a billboard.
It is, absolutely. He is every bit of the personality you hear on the podcast or through video, and even more in person.
Great guy, too. He's also one of those who's very passionate and ready to share his knowledge with others.
Yeah, no, I've run into him on the Pacific PowerShell user group once or twice, catching that. And he's always willing to share, answer questions, things like that. So another great community member for sure.
All right. I asked this question to a lot of guests, and I haven't asked it in the bar sessions much, but so you've been in the PowerShell world for a little bit. You've been listening to the podcast for a while. What is one tip you would give yourself before you got involved? Like early on in your career, you haven't engaged with the community at all in any way, shape, or form. What's some advice you give to yourself maybe 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I just try and force myself to dive in quicker. Kind of everything I have done, just give myself a little kick in the butt to do it sooner.
Yeah.
This is the first PowerShell event I've gone to. Could have had the opportunity to do like a PowerShell Saturday. They did one back in 2019, and I was just kind of starting to dabble in PowerShell then. If I'd have done it then, I can't imagine where I might be at this point, right? I might have gotten a summit or two under my belt in 22, 23 time range, Yeah, that'd be the biggest thing is if this is truly something that you have an interest in, even just a small one, just dive in, man. Just dive in.
Dang, I love to hear it. from someone who's attending, who's in the journey right now, on their come up. If you had a stock, dude, I'd be investing right now. That Ryan Park stock is on the rise, man. Now, I want to keep this kind of vibe going of common questions I ask a lot of guests that I don't ask in bar sessions. Top 3 favorite modules.
Yeah, like I said, a ton of VMware stuff. So Power CLI's got to be there, man.
Yep.
It just does. It's a pleasure to work with.
They invested a lot in that, so it's cool to see.
They did, absolutely. I haven't messed with SQL as much as I'd like to. That's something I'd like to do, but I've introduced our DBA to DBA tools, and the feedback I've gotten from them at what they're capable of doing now with that, with a little bit of me helping with some PowerShell formatting here and there, I can't not put that in the top 3.
Shout out
Right.
Chrissy Lemire and DBA Tools.
Yes.
DBAtools.io if you want to check it out for yourself.
Absolutely.
Third module.
Yeah. And then for the third one, probably go with like classic PS Readline, man.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were going to import Excel. You want PS Readline. You just hit me with a switch up.
Yeah.
What do you like about PS Readline?
Formatting in the terminal, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of one-off like live editing and things, or live one-liner writing, things
Yeah.
like that, where it might be easier than me pulling up VS Code somewhere, or I'm on a box that doesn't have VS Code, but it does have PowerShell 7, and so I can get that,
Is PowerShell 7 your daily driver?
I do my best pretty much everywhere. PowerShell 7. I'm very lucky in that I have a lot of free reign on the utilities that I'm able to do there, especially since it's signed off by Microsoft and everything. So, yes, I try my best to do PowerShell 7 everywhere.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool to see it cross-platform. A thing I highlighted in recent interviews was that people getting into PowerShell now don't know how cool it is, or like how momentous it was when PowerShell became cross-platform and open source. Like, that was a big paradigm shifter in a certain way. And now it's normal. It's been out for several years. People are kind of used to it, but it really opens up a lot of doors in terms of selling PowerShell to your org. And also with the whole Azure Cloud Shell, we got PowerShell everywhere. And it's a first-class citizen in the Microsoft world. I think Azure's built on top of PowerShell is what they say. So love to see it. And I know you've listened to a lot of PowerShell podcast episodes. Have you listened to all of them?
If not all of them, very close to it.
Okay.
Yes.
What is your favorite episode? What stands out to you as one that you were like, you walked away feeling like, dang, I took something away from that. I'm feeling juiced up. I'm ready to take this thing to 11.
I think the answer to that has to be this Jeffrey Snover episode.
That was a good
right?
one. That was a good one.
The origin story, hearing how much energy he poured into that, and how much he truly did sacrifice in his career in order to bring PowerShell to fruition. It's truly amazing, and I'm very thankful. I don't believe I'd be at where I am in my career if it wasn't for that.
Wow.
So
Shout out
there.
Jeffrey.
If we wanted to go for a more technical one, though, I don't know if I can pull it down to just one, but probably one of Chrissy's episodes. She did an episode on DBA tools, and then more recently some stuff on generative AI.
Yeah.
She's doing fantastic stuff.
I am a huge Chrissy stan. I don't know if I'm her number one fan because I know she has a lot of fans, but I am a top tier fan of Chrissy and the work that she's doing. And she's just a great human on top of it, I just love that. When you're a great person and you do great work, when you combine the two, it's a really great role model for others to kind of emulate. So shout out Chrissy. If you could share one piece of feedback or advice for those that are listening, what would you share with them? Maybe they have never gone to a conference. Maybe they're just listening kind of like you were before and haven't really gotten super engaged. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, kind of similar to the same advice I'd give myself. Dive in. We've talked about potentially doing something in Florida, some type of PowerShell Saturday in Florida.
Oh, yes. I teased it earlier. You're bringing it back.
Yeah. So just come. Just make it happen.
Find your opportunities. And if you can't travel, maybe you're in a different country, find a user group that you can attend. I know RTP Sug has one. Gainesville PowerShell user group regularly puts them on. What's your next step? I talk about the next step. We're building a brick wall, one brick at a time. What is your next step for your career and your kind of PowerShell journey?
Yeah, I really need to start doing more stuff in public, right? This could be that first step. You've signed me up for some future Gainesville PowerShell conversation.
Yes.
probably getting a blog out there. Maybe I'll put together a blog post kind of reviewing everything, went over this Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Maybe I'll make that happen.
That's how I got my first. I did a PowerShell Summit recap, and that was my first one. And if you share it on socials, make sure to let me know you do, and I'll give you a little retweet, or if you're on LinkedIn.
Sounds good.
But that's a great way to kind of launch things, and you can go from there. Once you kind of break that ice, it's a lot easier to create further posts. But that initial thing, it's kind of like a blank slate in VS Code. What do I do? There's so many options and opportunities and ways that this could go. And where can we take this? And, you know, the world is your oyster. Is that what they say?
Yeah, I think that's what they say, man. The world's
PowerShell
our
world
oyster.
is your oyster, man. You can crack that any way you want. And it's very cool to hear that you're kind of bought into it, man. And I'm excited to see where you go from here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited to keep trying to dive in further and just keep going. See how far the rabbit hole goes.
Yes, sir. Make some new friends. Have you made any new connections this week?
Yeah, I hadn't met anyone in the community really. Maybe a little bit isolated in Florida. You know, got Gainesville going on pretty recently. So I hadn't done that. So yeah, everyone here, like I said, met you, met Steven, met Stevie from Chocolatey. Lots of wonderful people. Everyone's been so welcoming. It's truly been great.
Fantastic people. Well, it's been fantastic getting to chat with you. I know we've hung out a bit this week. You know, it's been awesome to meet you. I know we had a Discord convo kind of going back and forth. Great sessions today. I look forward to running into you tomorrow. If people want to tune in for the journey, man, they want to hear about that first blog post, where can we follow you on socials?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm just Ryan Park on LinkedIn.
I'll have a link to it in the show notes. How about that? Okay, make it easy.
Sounds
Just
good.
click and
That
hit
sounds
connect and let him know that the PowerShell podcast sent you so he knows you're not a creeper. But honestly, I accept every connection request that comes in. I accept every connection request.
Gotcha.
Regardless of who it comes from. So.
Yeah, I will accept every connection request as well.
Awesome.
Happy to answer any questions, or might have some of my own.
That's right. That's what we're all about here is collaborating and sharing knowledge, because two minds are greater than one. Did you know that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.